Welcome to Microdose the Mind, where tiny doses create monumental shifts. We're your hosts, Brian Schwartz and Jeremy Wolf, and we're here to guide you through the fascinating world of microdosing, both in plant medicine and daily habits. Get ready to expand your mind and reshape your reality.
Hello there, everyone. We are here and we are in for a wild ride, aren't we, Brian?
We are, Jeremy.
We are going to talk all about microdosing. And I think this is going to be an interesting experiment because you've been in this world, in this space for many years now, and you've also been practicing the art of microdosing now for some time. And I had been off and on, and I'm just now starting. So we're going to see a couple of perspectives here. We're going to see one from somebody who has been in the game for a while, and then one from somebody who's really entering the game. And we'll be able to see that juxtaposition between the experience of somebody that's been doing it for a while versus myself who's just getting into this. And I've had quite the interesting experience coming in. I've had a lot of stuff coming up internally. So I'm interested to get into this, but I want to lead off with you because you have more experience and knowledge in this space. Tell everybody a little bit about like microdosing psilocybin specifically.
Sure, Jeremy. First of all, thank you for having me on the show. I'm really excited to be here. This path I'm on has changed my life tremendously and really just reevaluated me as a human being. And it's an honor to be here today to share my experience and wisdom and what I've personally noticed from taking microdoses, and specifically very small doses of magic mushrooms or psilocybin.
Magical.
And the first thing I want to say with any of this personal growth world, right? Any of the microdosing, the breath work, anything that we see, right, in our world right now is not a quick fix. So I just want to put this out for listeners that microdosing is a journey, right? It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. It requires work, right? Work on our part. But the microdoses and the medicine only do half the work. The other half the work is required by us. So I want to put that out there because it's a misconception that I take this little microdose and I'm going to feel great.
It'll change your world forever.
It'll change your world. It'll open your consciousness.
Expand your reality every day. Oh shit! You know what I just realized, brother? My audio quality is going to be trash because my mic is like 3 feet away from me. Hold on a second.
Okay.
Well, keep going, keep talking. Oh, wait, but before you go any further, I just want to let everybody know, like, we are not doctors. We are, take this information with a grain of salt or a whole bunch of grains of psilocybin, but don't take it to the bank because we are just talking here. We're just having conversations. Obviously, you want to go into this stuff responsibly and you want to do your own research. So, little disclaimer for everybody there.
So, Jeremy said.
Yes. I often say things.
And you are a master with the mic and a master with your words.
All right, now we got some audio here.
All right, I can hear you, brother.
You can hear me better now.
I just took a microdose and my hearing went from like subpar to
fucking incredible. It does do that, right? It heightens the senses, they say.
It expands our consciousness. It opens up our reality. It allows us to feel deeper. They allow us to see ourselves in a new microscope and a new lens. It creates awareness around ourselves and our world. What do mushrooms do? What's the purpose of mushrooms, right? Mushrooms eat the dead to birth life.
Mushrooms eat the dead to birth life?
Yes, they eat the decaying matter in the woods, right? The trees, the grass, the animal. The mycelium forms a network over these beings, and they put fruits out from the earth that came from a decaying corpse or a dead tree. Guess what they do to you as a human being? They allow us to look at the things in ourselves that are dying, that aren't serving us anymore, that need to go. The things that we hold on to, beliefs that don't serve us, maybe it's a pattern or a habit or a way of communication. Microdosing can really shine a spotlight on everything in your life. But once again, it's a journey and you take small increments over time with consistency, things slowly start to change as you do the work. But with everything in this world, taking the pill in the morning or eating the mushrooms or going to the breathwork event or going to the retreat or going to the ayahuasca ceremony is great and it will serve you. But guess what? The work happens at home. The work happens when you're by yourself, with your family, when you're with your thoughts. And what microdosing really does for me is it just allows me to have a little bigger awareness over my reality.
Just a little heightened sense of awareness. And that's one of the things I've tried this now, and we've been documenting this experience to some degree. Something's been coming up for me lately with the microdosing, and it's this theme of sickness, nausea. In the past, when I would microdose and I would feel that, I would just stop doing it and write it off as the mushroom is not mixing well with me for whatever reason. What I've come to realize, though, is that there's something internally with me that's coming up now that's making me sick from the mushroom. And it's not the mushroom's fault. It's something within me. And I'm really starting to look at that and reframe that thought process and that experience to try to work on things that are going on within me. If that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense.
Does it? Because it didn't sound like it made sense when I just said it. But
it makes sense, Jeremy. It makes sense. Jeremy Wolf, I'll call you my brother, Jeremy Wolf. It makes perfect sense. And once again, like my first question will be, first of all, we're not doctors, right? So when someone comes to me with this kind of response to microdosing, my first question is, have you gone to the doctor recently? How's your overall health? How's your diet?
Your gut, right? Yeah, the gut health.
The gut health. Because serotonin is produced, right? 80% of our serotonin is produced in our gut. Right. So gut health is one of the most important things that we can do to take care of ourselves. Now, that may or may not have anything to do with why you're nauseous at all. However, it's a good start, right? It's a good place to start. As a practitioner, as you a client, I would say, hey, have you had a checkup? When was your last physical? We'll talk about lifestyle and wellness. And that's a good starting point, right? But I find that the microdoses will amplify whatever's going on in your world. So if you're feeling great, they can amplify feeling great, right? If you're sad and don't know why, they can amplify the sadness. If you have some underlying health issues or nausea, they can make it a little more pronounced to you. It'll get your attention, right? I always ask people, are you paying attention, right? Because if we're not paying attention, what are we doing? We're taking a sacred sacrament, right, with thousands of years of knowledge and wisdom. Even though it's a microdose and a little small subpar dose, we are ingesting this in our body. So are we paying attention to what the medicine is teaching us? So you may
I'm paying attention.
How do I pay attention?
I've been paying attention. Something that's been instrumental for me lately is I've been going through it. I'm often going through it, right? But a lot of times in the past, when I was having difficult times, the way I would frame that in my mind would be such that I would question, why does it always have to be like this? Why do I have to keep doing this? Goodbye. This is getting old. This is boring. I'm done with this. This kind of story that I'm telling myself. And what I've come to learn through this journey is that the things that we're telling ourselves are so unbelievably important. I might be going through it and having a difficult time, but I'm starting to tell myself we have this retreat upcoming this weekend. And although I'm going through it now, I'm starting to tell myself that it's because a breakthrough is coming. It's because there's a lot of bottled things that are bottled up that are coming out. They're coming to the surface. And I'm going to go into this experience with an intention to clear a lot of this. And I feel like on the other side of that, there's going to be an incredibly insightful, powerful experience that's going to transform me further down the pathway on this journey. And I think it's so important to have that mindset and to really believe that when you're struggling, you're going through something, there's a reason why that's happening. And it's because you're on the verge of a breakthrough or something good is going to happen. And maybe there is something good that's happening. Maybe there's not something good that's going to happen. But I'd argue to say that just telling yourself and having that mentality is going to increase the likelihood that something good will happen. Let's say
you are doing, right? So when we microdose, it's a ritual. We're taking this as a ritual. We're setting an intention. And oftentimes things get worse before they get better. However, having a positive mindset doesn't hurt. So example, let's just say we go to the retreat, you have this major breakthrough. Guess what the breakthrough is, right? The breakthrough might be you have a parasite in your stomach causing nausea, right? Just hypothetically speaking, that's the breakthrough, right? Well, guess what? You're much better off going into the weekend with a positive mindset, thinking that the breakthrough's going to happen, to find out you have a parasite than not, right? It may be something else, but no matter what it is, that mindset going into the weekend, into our experience, will definitely help dictate the outcome. Now, in our experience, we know that oftentimes things do get worse before they get better.
How do we translate all this? So this is the thing that was difficult for me in terms of microdosing and starting up for 3 or 4 days. I found that this feeling of sickness that I was getting, it was feeding into my general malaise about doing leaning into uncomfortable work that I have to do. If things need to get done, whatever it is, whether I need to clean a house, whether I need to do something for production, whether I need to go out and cold call, whatever I need to do, that feeling that I was getting from the microdose was feeding into that and amplifying that feeling of uncomfortability and anxiety. So I was getting not only a little sick and nauseous, but also feeling a heightened sense of anxiety, which, from what I understand, the microdosing is supposed to help with all of that. And I thought that maybe if I just did it consistently for enough time, I would get used to that feeling, but it kept coming up. So I actually took a little bit more of a microdose. I took probably like a gram the other day, and it basically heightened that feeling even further, but the experience was very introspective. And I drew a lot out of the experience, but I felt myself very nauseous throughout the whole process. So I'm curious what I can do. Is this something that, it doesn't feel like this is going to go away by just doing it more and more. It feels like I need to figure out what it is internally that's causing this. So like, where do I go from here? We've been talking about this, but what can I do to continue this journey in order to get past this chronic nausea that I'm getting?
Sure. The first thing I want to tell you is
lots of combo.
To all the listeners, why it is so important to have a support group or a microdose coach when embarking on a microdose journey for this exact reason, right? I have lots of clients take a microdose and they follow up with me with a question, right? How come I'm feeling this way? What can I do to change how I'm feeling? What do I need to do to feel better? So with any new practice, we want to journal, right? We want to use these tools that we know on how to interpret what we're feeling. So my first question to you is, are you journaling when you microdose? Are you journaling what's coming up for me?
Am I journaling? So that's another thing. It just goes back to this whole idea of daily habits and microdosing the mind with, whether be it psilocybin or whatever it is that you're going to do, exercise, diet. It all goes back to this idea of consistency. And when you ask me, have I been journaling? Yeah, I have, but not consistently. And there's a fine line between beating yourself up over that and giving yourself some credit for actually doing it. Because I have written down my thoughts and I have done this. But it just goes back to, for whatever reason, I have a hard time doing it consistently. So that's where I'm at.
So that's my first thing I would ask you is, what are you doing after the microdose? What are you doing to tap into yourself? Are you meditating? Are you journaling? Are you going to a support group? Are you going to see a therapist? Are you evaluating your diet? Are you looking at anything in your life that could possibly make you feel this way? Are you looking at that? Are you making small changes to see if you feel better? And that's a good place to start, right? I would start there. That being said, I can share with you a little experience about my own journey with microdosing and what I've noticed in myself when the anxiety comes up. As we all know, last Thursday was Thanksgiving. Now, a year ago, I recall going to my Thanksgiving dinner, and I had been microdosing. I microdosed the day of the Thanksgiving dinner, and I recall a deep sense of anxiety and panic and fear upon going to my family's house for Thanksgiving. This was a year ago. In that moment, I did not know what was causing the anxiety. All I know is I did not feel well. Fast forward 1 year later, I go back to the same family dinner with the same people and the same food a year later to the date with the same microdose, and I felt great. I felt connected. I felt centered. I really enjoyed the time with my family. So I really sat back and I journaled and I meditated and I sat with this and I asked myself, what has changed since last year to this year, right? On my journey, the anxiety was caused by a deep feeling of grief and sadness for the family that I projected onto myself that I did not have. So at this point in time, I had some unhealed wounds in myself in regards to my family. And what the microdoses were trying to show me a year ago was, hey man, you were holding on to some deep anger and sadness regarding your family, and it's not serving you. Now it's been a journey, and it's taken me a year really to heal this wound, but here we are a year later, and I can show up with my family and my loved ones, and there is no sense of impending doom. There's no anxiety. There's clarity. There's forgiveness. There's grace, and there's compassion with both them and myself. So that's just a small example of how the mushrooms were teaching me to feel. They're teaching me to look deep within myself and ask myself what could possibly be causing this disconnect in myself. Because ultimately, when we're feeling disconnected or anxious or anything not aligned with our true self, there's something internally going on with us that we need to work through, which in turn will change the way our reality is projected for us. Does that make sense?
It's always internal. You always must first
look within
what the issue is. But I wanted to push back on something you said, or not push back. I'm just speaking here. How much of this dichotomy between the two Thanksgivings, where you had one experience with the microdose and another, how much of that do you contribute to the work you've done and the growth and development and all the plant medicine, all the journeys and everything that you're doing versus just having a bad day, right? Like it could have been the case in my mind that you went a year ago and you just were not doing well for whatever reason. Maybe your daughter gave you some issues. Maybe you were fighting with your girl, whatever that is that day. And then you went there and you were not feeling well mentally and you had a tough day. Fast forward a year, you were just feeling well. You were vibing, you were doing well. You went into your family and it was just a different experience. So like how much would you contribute to the medicine and the work you've done versus just good day versus bad day?
It's a great question. It's a great question. I think that for me and my own, and for this personal example, right after that Thanksgiving a year ago, I noticed the interaction with the family after the Thanksgiving, right, the week after, the month after, a similar feeling coming up. Okay, and I would go to a ceremony and pray about it and get lessons and downloads. I would go to my therapist and talk about it, and whatever avenue I went to, it came back to the same thing, is that I was holding on to anger and resentment. And there was a lot of grief that I had not felt around my family, around my father, around my mother, around my sister. Maybe there was some resentments based on how we were treated when we were growing up. And I really can't tell you the exact reason for it. All I know is that there was unhealed energies inside of me that needed to move, right? And most of the time when we're feeling anxious or angry, right, underneath that is some sadness and grief. Not always, but most of the time. So I'll tell you, like in the last year, I have grieved for almost a whole year, to be honest with you. It took it took a good amount of time before I started to notice some relief. But I would continue with my microdoses. I would continue with my rituals. I would continue with my journaling, with sharing, with meditating. And slowly and surely, I started to feel better around my family.
How long have you been microdosing for?
So I had been microdosing on and off for about 6 years.
Wow. So on and off, elaborate further. You mean on and off? Do you take long periods of time off, or do you just take like what does the regimen look like over that six-year period?
When I first started microdosing, I was tapering off of antidepressants. Microdosing is an amazing tool for this as well. Once again, I'm not a doctor, so I would definitely recommend consulting with the physician before you decide to stop any medications. But when I first started the mushrooms and the microdosing, it was more of a 5 days a week, 2 off kind of protocol. So with mushrooms and microdosing, really any kind of ritual, right? You want to be consistent. So for me personally, my journey started with 5 days on, 2 off. As I began to feel better from coming off the prescriptions, I would change my regimen. So I could always change my dosing protocol based on what I have going on in my life at the time. The most important thing is consistency. And I recommend either 2, 3, 4, or 5 days a week, taking days off. And the reason why the days off is so important is because the mycelium and the mushrooms are creating new neural pathways in our brain. So it's very important to allow the medicine to leave our system to organically solidify those pathways. And once again, my schedule has varied throughout the years, especially for me personally, right? I sit with lots of ayahuasca. I do lots of heavy, deep journeys, lots of microdoses. So when
you do, my friend, that you do.
Right. So in my case, personally, when I'm sitting with lots of other plant medicines, it's not so necessary for me to microdose daily because I'm receiving the benefits from these other medicines and from these larger doses.
Okay.
So to answer your question, the more active I am in ceremonies, the less frequently I'm microdosing. So my microdosing protocol may look like 2 days a week on a month where I have ceremonies, as opposed to 4 or 5 days a week on a month when I have nothing going on.
So are you basing all of this on just your own personal experience going through this process, or did you research before you created this regimen? Like, how do you know that when you're doing ceremonies, you don't need to take it as frequently because you have more in your system? Is that just a feel thing, or is that something that you actually researched? How did you arrive at that?
All the above.
A little combination.
All the above.
Yep. Combo mambo mix of everything.
Combo mix everything. I'll tell you that I definitely research a lot. I follow a lot of professionals and the experts in the field. I love listening to Paul Stamens. I believe Paul Stamens has an amazing viewpoint on microdosing. He has formulated the Stamens stack, which is a psilocybin microdose with vitamin B6 and niacin. So the combination works synergistically together. So once again, I want to say other mushrooms work wonderful with magic mushrooms. So it helps to take an adaptogen mushroom complex.
Like a lion's mane, one of those herbal supplement mushrooms that you take in the morning.
Exactly. But I'll tell you though, and I'm sitting there thinking about the benefits I've received from microdosing specifically. And the first thing I want to say is it helps to turn my life into a ritual. Right. And I think rituals are so important. Rituals right? The very first ritual for mankind was when?
The first ritual for mankind?
First ritual for mankind.
I don't know. Tell me.
Okay, so I will tell you.
Please do.
Way back in the day, man would wake up and the sun would rise. Man was grateful and thankful. The sun shined all day. And then what happens to the sun at night?
It goes away.
It goes away. So what did mankind start from day one? A ritual, praying to the sun gods.
To come back.
Praying for the sun to rise. That involves a ritual, consistency, faith, prayer, right? Trust in the universe, trust in ourselves. And every day the sun would rise, right? So this is how the very first ritual became. And this is actually how shamanism started, because shamanism is based on rituals, right? And this whole neo-shamanistic movement, which is bringing microdosing and all the other wonderful plant medicines and things we're seeing in our world today, it's based on an ancient practice that starts with rituals, right? And the basis for ritual is what? It's trust, it's faith, and it's action. We have to trust in what we're doing, we have to have faith in the outcome, and we have to take the action. And I think when we speak about your own journey and my journey, that where we fall short is on the action. And there's no one to blame except us. It's not the mushroom's fault, right? It's not creator's fault, it's our fault. So as I'm speaking to you, maybe the mushrooms are telling you to take more action. I don't know, right? But I know that's been a consistent thing in our conversations is, man, Brian, I know I need to do X, Y, Z to feel great, but I just can't do it. I just can't do it.
Interesting. You're talking about these rituals, and I'm going to go down a rabbit hole here just because it came in my mind. How much, it's like the example of praying to the sun to return, which is silly on its face, because we know now what we know. How is there a distinction in your mind between rituals that aren't supported by science, if you will, that are just faith-based, and then those that are actually supported? It's like there seems to be a lot of value in having rituals surrounding things that are unknown. But I guess as long as you're not hurting anybody else and it's helping you, it shouldn't really matter what you're doing.
Exactly.
Did that all make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And we talk about microdosing the mind. We talk about making small adjustments in our daily life to lead big results, right? So let's just talk about, for example, the ritual of, say, going to the gym, right? Go to the gym. Now, you and I both know that when we start going to the gym consistently, we start feeling better, right? But it takes consistency and small efforts and moments of faith and trust and action, right? We trust that if we go to the gym, we're going to feel better. We have faith in our ability to go to the gym and do what we need to do to feel better. And we also take the action, which makes us feel better.
Okay, yeah, that's just obviously right. That's actually supported by science. We know, everybody knows that exercising is great. But what I was talking about was, let's say you have a ritual where you take a pillow and you draw a face on it. And every morning you put the pillow on the bed and you have a conversation with the pillow and you let out a bunch of anger. That could seem like crazy towns, but if that actually helps you mentally, is that something that we should be occupying our time with? That's what I'm talking about.
I think it's a balance. My first question is, do you feel better after smacking the pillow?
I
Do more of what feels good.
More of what feels good, as long as it's not hurting anyone else.
Or anybody else. And I hear you. And it's definitely a topic of debate on what is science and what is not science and where does the two meet. And I think this is where the faith comes in, right? This is where the faith comes in and the trust. I don't have the answers for everybody, right? We all have to find our own answer. Of course.
The reason why I bring that up, and I use an extreme example like that, is because as I feel like I have one foot in the door and one out the door when it comes to the life that you're leading, right? This whole ceremony space and this whole process, every time I enter into it, because I'm so plugged into like Western culture and society and productivity and everything in my main life, every time I enter into the space, there's always this feeling of uncomfortability. And there's always this, whether I go to an ayahuasca ceremony or even the retreat that we're going to, I get there and it feels uncomfortable and it feels off. But then undoubtedly by the end of the experience, I always feel like a huge weight is lifted and I feel better. But then you talk about things like the spirit world, and we talk about these different things that happen that I'm very skeptical of. And I have a hard time just buying into all of this whole cloth without having evidence to support it. And I'm constantly torn between these two worlds, if you will. Part of me wants to just dive in with both feet, or dive in head first, just like you did, and just make this my life's work. But the other part of me realizes that I also need to do something to build wealth and income and all that stuff. And the life that you've chosen is not so easy to generate income and wealth around, because it's all about personal growth development. And so I'm torn between these two spaces. What say you about that? Give me some guidance here, Schwartzy.
First of all, I want to say it makes sense that you feel torn between these two spaces. They're two completely different realities, completely different spaces, completely different ways of being and living and showing up for yourself in the world. When you're not used to showing up in a ceremony setting and being around people you don't know and strangers and becoming very vulnerable, sure, there may be a sense of, man, this is scary. I feel scared right now. However, like you said, by the end of the ceremony, you feel great, you're socializing. And I think after I've been watching you grow through these ceremonies, every time you're getting a little bit better. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really what matters, right? You're making small incremental steps to becoming the person you are meant to be. And who are you meant to be? You're meant to be comfortable in your own skin. That's who you're meant to be.
That's really the key with everything. And it doesn't matter what you're doing, whether it's the shaman life or whether it's the rat race life. It doesn't matter what life you're leading. If you're doing so via the most authentic version of yourself, and you feel comfortable in your own skin with whatever it is that you're doing, whatever task you're doing, the success will come. And it just seems to happen naturally. It just seems to gravitate towards you, if you will. And that's one of the biggest challenges I've had throughout my journey, is just this roller coaster ride of being up and down. And I think that's not uncommon. Obviously, everybody experiences that. But in your own story, in your own world, you feel like you're the champion of that effort, right? You feel like your roller coaster is even higher and lower than everybody else. But in reality, everybody's going through the same shit, and it's part of life.
It's part of life. And in response to your question about making a living out of this lifestyle, right? It's a choice and a calling that we each have to have, right? And it's going to look different for everybody, right? Your lifestyle and your daily life is different than my daily life, right? Your bills are different. Your skill sets are different. Your world is different. For me, mine's been challenging, right? We both know my story. I became very sick from working in corporate America. So my body, even today, let me phrase this in the right way. It would not serve me and my highest good to get back to a 9-to-5 corporate job or to work in any sort of capacity that's not serving others. I'm using my wisdom, right? I've been blessed and I've been chosen, right, to share these gifts and these wisdom. It's a very difficult path. I question myself often. However, I know who I am, and I continue to take steps in the right direction. I continue to have trust. I have my faith, and I take action. And I don't know what tomorrow's going to bring, Jeremy, but today I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. It feels good.
Here's how I know that you're onto something with this, and the people that have led the lifestyle you're leading are onto it. And it's this, and you can call it having a buzz or a high from the experience, but every fucking time we go on a retreat, specifically the retreats, also with some of the ceremonies we do, but when we get done with that experience, we have this feeling, deep down, visceral feeling inside of us that's like, more people need to experience what this is. And it's a hard, you can't just bottle it up and then tell people about it. Something like you almost want to like, you want to bottle up the experience and actually feed people some of the actual experience. I want to give you a taste of it so you can see what it's like and see how powerful of an experience it is. Then the trick becomes, well, how do you proselytize that experience? Are you still with me, Brian? Uh-oh, we lost you, brother. How do we get this back? He will get you down. So we were talking about, here he comes. He's coming back. No? So we're talking about trying to take the experience that we have when we go on ceremony, when we do these retreats. And I think that's what we're doing right now, actually, is that this is what this platform is. We're trying to figure this stuff out, and we're trying to get the thoughts out from our head, out into the world, and get some feedback on these thoughts, and then keep going through the process, keep journeying, keep trial and error, and keep putting the thoughts out there and keep doing different iterations and keep trying to get better and better, but all the while sharing this experience with others. And in doing that, so the theory goes, we should get to a place of higher enlightenedness, if that's even a thing. So we completely lost Brian. It's just me and an echo. We are going to wrap this up now because I don't like, as much as I like talking to myself, I don't know that I like talking to myself on camera. Maybe I do. I just don't know it yet. So we are signing off now. We are going on retreat this Friday. We are going to have an incredible experience. We are going to grow and grow and grow. And then we're going to come back to you post-retreat, probably in about a week from now. We'll try to do it fresh off the retreat, and we'll try to give you some of the insights, some of the experiences that we had, some of the wisdom that we've gleaned, and we'll share it back with all you guys. So as we start this journey together, please, we welcome all comments. We welcome anything you want us to discuss. If you have any feedback about your own personal journey, drop it in the comments, share your thoughts, engage with us, because we want to share with you and we want to keep this message coming at you all the time. So until next time, everyone take care, put out a great, wonderful energy into the universe. We're going to go super, super woo-woo on you right now. Keep a positive mindset. Keep telling yourself a good, positive story, and we will catch you next time. Everyone take care. Have a lovely day.
Thanks for tuning in to Microdose the Mind. If you enjoyed today's episode, share it with a friend and help us spread the word about the magic of microdosing. Be sure to follow us on social media for all the latest updates and insights. And remember, while we love our tiny doses, sometimes you just need to go big. Just make sure you're in the right set and setting. Until next time, keep your mind open and ready for growth.